Hello, everybody, and welcome to Heartlight Vedic Astrology. Happy New Year. This is the first video for 2025. So I'm going to be talking about the planetary transits or Gochara for January 2025. This talk is from a Vedic astrology or Jyotish perspective, so keep that in mind. So ancient Indian astrology, that's more than 5,000 years old. And it seems like this month, the theme, I think, is sparking a fire. Looks like things are going to get perhaps more heated and a little bit intense. Yeah, some big changes coming, looks like. At least the start of it. We're going to have even more through the spring, but this is the beginning part of it. So let's take a look. Note beforehand, the information presented here is for educational purposes only and should not be considered medical, financial, professional, or life advice of any kind. If you are in need, please contact an appropriate professional for support. Then you might take a minute or two to read the rest of this disclaimer. Okay, so if you're new to Vedic astrology, Jyotish are my videos. All my teaching videos on the subject are my concepts playlist. They can be found there. Wherever you see a double asterisk in one of my talks, that means there's a teaching video on that subject if you'd like to learn more. My channel is all about playlists. I'm pretty good at organizing my videos into different playlists, so different topic areas are kind of easy to find all the videos related to that. Like I have a graha's planets playlist, a bhava's houses playlist, yoga's planetary combinations playlist, and there are others. Also, if you'd like to learn astrology by looking at the charts of famous people, places, and moments in time, I would check out my Birth Chart Archive List 2024 video, where I list all the famous charts I've analyzed on the channel and the videos you can find them in. I'm going to be updating that. Looks like I'm going to do that yearly because I got through a lot of famous charts, so I expect another one probably in mid-spring or so for the ones that recently. Helpful videos to watch with this one, North, South, and East Indian style charts. I do cover Western style charts in that video as well. Introduction to navigating a birth chart, the lugna, also known as the ascendant, rising sign, or first house. Introduction to the constellations or rashis, constellation or rashi categories, planetary aspects, grahas, planets in their own sign or star, karako bhavanasha, natural, benefic, and malefic planets or grahas, nakshatras or lunar mansions, planet friends or enemies, graha, mitra, shatru, bhavat, bhavam, house of the house concept, planetary combustion or asta, sandhi or gandanta planets on the edge, planetary exaltation, debilitation or uccha, nicha, planet retrogression or vakri, and then there's going to be a bunch of yoga, so parivartana, solar, lunar, kala, sarpa, kartari, pancha, mahapurusha yogas. So you can check out those videos as well. Okay, so let's take a look at the dates when everything is moving in the sky. And just as a reminder also, if you're looking for my video on the first 6 months of 2025, that's my video December solstice 2024 to June solstice 2025, Uttarayana. So that's out there if you want to get kind of an overview for the first 6 months of 2025. But as far as January goes, January 3rd, Mars has an exact aspect on Venus, and Venus enters Shatabisha nakshatra. January 4th, Mercury enters Sagittarius or Danu and Mula nakshatra simultaneously. January 10th, Sun enters Uttarashada nakshatra. January 12th, Mars enters Punarvasu nakshatra. January 13th, Sun enters Capricorn or Makara. Mercury enters Purvashada and nakshatra, and there's going to be a full moon in Gemini, Mithuna, and Punarvasu nakshatra. So January 15th, Mars has an exact aspect on Sun, and January 16th, Venus enters Purva Bhadrapada nakshatra. 17th through 20th of January, Venus, Saturn are in planetary war, or graha yuddha. January 18th, Mercury goes combust or asta. January 20th, Mars re-enters Gemini because it's retrograding. January 22nd, Mercury enters Uttarashada nakshatra. January 23rd, Sun enters Shravana nakshatra, and Mars has an exact aspect on Mercury. January 24th, Mercury enters Capricorn. January 27th, Ketu has an exact aspect on Mercury, and Venus enters Pisces or Meena. January 29th, there's going to be a new moon in Capricorn or Makara, and that's going to be in Shravana nakshatra. January 30th, Jupiter has an exact aspect on Sun, and Mercury enters Shravana nakshatra. Then January 31st, Venus enters Uttara, but drops the nakshatra. Alrighty, so let's see. Okay, so first off, let's take a look at the sky pattern and how that's shifting from the beginning of the month to the end of the month. So on the left, I have a chart for January 1st, and on the left, on the right, I have a chart for January 31st. The thing about both of these charts you'll notice, well, let's start off with, I use North Indian style charts in my work. And so to orient you, if you're not familiar, the top diamond at the top, in the middle, that's called the ascendant, the rising sign, first house, and the lugna. Okay, all different names for the same thing. And that little one in the bottom corner is not there because it is the first house. It's there because that means that the first zodiac sign of Aries or Mesha is in the first house. So what that means is I've oriented both of these charts to Aries, Aries rising, Aries or Mesha lugna. Okay. The reason why I do that is because when you have the first zodiac sign of Aries in the first house, it creates a natural zodiac. And the natural zodiac you can kind of think of as like a birth chart for the whole world or humanity, and it's basically collective energy. Okay. So, all right. So January 1st, the time happens to be 12:04 p.m. Eastern Standard Time when we get to 1 degree of Aries. That's just the time zone I live in. I'm not sure that's really super relevant here. Um, but the moon nakshatra on the first day of January is an Uttarashada. That's a very victorious, like a piercing, sudden, victorious type of energy. So that might be pretty nice, especially since it's January 1st. A lot of people might be kind of shooting out of the gate because of that. The Dasha period at that time is Sun, Venus, Saturn, Ketu. Okay. So what do those planets represent? Well, Sun is, it can be the king, the president, the government, father, authority, that sort of thing. Now you can see I've circled Sun. Sun is in the 9th house here. And Sun in the 9th house creates what we call a karako. Okay, karko is when we have a planet representing a particular person and a house representing a particular person, in this case, father. So this actually means that there might be issues with the things that I mentioned, government, authority, boss, father. Okay. And then we have Venus. Venus is a planet representing like relationships, especially spouse-like partner, the finer things in life, and pets, refined, high-level food, that sort of thing, travel, that sort of thing. And then we have Saturn with it. Saturn is kind of the opposite energy of Venus, frankly, whereas Venus is sort of the social grace and hostess with the Moses type of energy. Saturn's like cold, distant, literally the planet, but also like it's all about delays and obstacles and that sort of thing. And we have Venus and Saturn together in the 11th house of clubs, groups, and societies. And so what I thought was kind of interesting was, at least for New Year's, almost everybody I talked to said they were staying home. Like they were like, I was invited to party, but I don't feel like going. I'm kind of tired, blah, blah, blah. So that kind of is represented here. And even like, I live close to New York City. And even that, there was like a huge storm. Like, so the people who were down there in Times Square, like, got completely drenched, apparently. So anyway, that's that. And then K2 is in the 6th house of like, enemies and acute problems and stuff like that. So even though the mind might be feeling like fairly optimistic and energetic even, we're seeing some difficulties here. Okay. The other thing is that with this moon being closest Saturn here, or in the sign before Saturn, this indicates like a sati sati. Sati sati is a configuration when Saturn is in the constellation before, of, or after the moon. It's a 7.5 year period because Saturn switches signs every 2.5 years. We call that sati sati. Now, a lot of people are kind of fearful of sati sati because a lot of big changes happen because Saturn again brings obstacles and delays, and moon represents especially the intuitive mind, yeah, and emotions. So when Saturn goes rolling through slowly, past the natal moon, it can bring difficulties for people. Not always. It can bring, really great things as well. But often it indicates that there's going to be a loss of some major support system. Okay, and we actually have a sati sati at both the beginning and the end of the month. So that also on its own indicates that there are some problems probably. Okay, so let's see any yogas we have. Well, we have Ubhayachari solar yoga. So that's the sun being supported on either side here. Actually, I need to change that. Actually, it's just a Veshi yoga here because the moon is not a true planet. So it's just a Veshi yoga. Let me change that. And then for the moon, let me double check. And for the moon, I have to change that as well. So for the moon, we have a Sunafa yoga. But that means that either, for both of these, there's some support for both the sun and the moon. And those are the two essentially executive planets, like the king and queen here. Saturn is Swa. It's in its own sign here of Aquarius, which is a fixed air sign. So a lot of fixed ideas. And let's see, Mars is debilitated. Okay, so Mars is an action planet and it's retrograding, so there's some strength there, but it's debilitated being in Cancer. Now, Mars is the Lugnatia, it's the planet that owns the first house of Aries here. So with the ruling planet of the chart being debilitated, that's going to create instability. And then the other thing is we have this massive Saturn in its own sign, again, a planet representing obstacles and delays, and Aquarius being a fixed air sign, meaning like stuck ideas, that sort of thing. This Saturn is debilitating Aries. So this is going to bring a lot of instability to the top of the chart here, the lug. And because there's instability here through both the dispositor, the owner of the Aries, as well as Saturn, aspecting in here, overall that sets the tone for the chart. And okay. So, and that will be changing a little bit, at least temporarily here, towards the end of the month. Okay. So, the other thing about this sun, I mentioned it's karko, so there's difficulties here with, father, boss, authority, government. It also is bhavat bhavam, meaning that the sun is the lord of the fifth house, and it's gone 5 houses away. So this could be like the fifth house represents like creative projects, that sort of thing. And so this could be like, issues with, like old creative projects because we have the Saturn and Venus aspecting the fifth house. So there can be delays with like arts. There can be delays with like romance. The fifth house represents romance, and Venus is the planet for romance. But we have this massive Saturn of like delays and obstacles, hindering that. Okay, so again, even though we're optimistic, yay, 2025. Again, I'm seeing that there's social obstacles and creative obstacles starting off on January 1st. Okay. Then if we look at the chart on the right for January 31st, this is set for 10:06 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, that's just the time zone I live in, but we're still working with a, Aries rising chart here. The moon is now in Shatabisha, so I think it's sort of like, reality kind of hitting here. Shatabisha is a nakshatra or lunar mansion. And if you're not familiar, lunar mansions, there are 27 of them. And every night the moon goes through a different one, and they all have different energies. Shatabisha can literally be translated from Sanskrit as 100 healers. So when you have planets in Shatabisha, they can indicate, health issues that are difficult to heal. Sometimes they can also indicate like doctors and healthcare workers and stuff like that, depending on like where they are and what planets are there. But with the moon in Shatabisha with Saturn, it's because again Saturn is delays and obstacles and chronic problems. With the moon so close, and moon being in Shatabisha, Saturn also happens to be in Purva nakshatra. Purva is the symbol of that is the front legs of a funeral pyre. So Saturn represents like, destruction and chronic disease and death. And then, we've got it in a, not so happy, destructive nakshatra like Purva. I mean, Saturn's going to be pretty gnarly. luckily Saturn is finally moving out of Aquarius. It's been there for almost 2 years now, about 2 years. We've got, it will be moving out of Aquarius at the end of March. But again, we're seeing like when you see Saturn with the moon, that typically ends up being like anxiety, depression, doubt, skepticism. So again, there's this optimism at the beginning of the month and not so much towards the end of the month here. Okay. So again, I'm seeing with this moon position here, mental emotional issues. But then the Dasha period, planetary period, at the end of the month is Rahu, Venus, Venus, Jupiter. So we're still picking up this Venus energy, but now Venus is in the 12th house of losses and expenditures. Okay, and Rahu is here, and Rahu and Venus are both in the 12th house. So we're starting to look at losses here. Yeah. And Jupiter actually is also in the 12th house because with Venus being in Pisces in the 12th house, Pisces is ruled by Jupiter, which is in the second house. And the second house here is Taurus, which is ruled by Venus. So Venus in a sign of Jupiter and Jupiter in a sign of Venus, you can essentially swap these. It's what we call a parivartana exchange of houses. So what that means is we've got Rahu, Venus, and Jupiter in the 12th house, and we also have Jupiter and Venus in the second house. So we're starting to build things here around the lugna, okay? Now, in a way, even though there's losses here, and Jupiter being in its own sign of the Pisces, that'll protect against some losses, but more material losses like inanimate objects. The thing is that Jupiter and Venus both represent, people. They also both represent counseling. Like Venus is the worldly counselor, Jupiter is the spiritual counselor. So there can be loss of advisors, through here, generally speaking. But Venus and Jupiter in the second house represents oral speech and family inner circle. Jupiter is there retrograding through Rohini. Rohini is a nakshatra that's considered to be very lovely and attractive and that sort of thing. And Jupiter represents speech. So there may be this dichotomy of people speaking really well and the true losses of people here. And the thing is with Rahu in the 12th house, Rahu is a planet, it's a north node of the moon. Rahu can indicate like hidden things and foreign things. So this can be losses that people are sort of frankly covering up. Okay. And yeah. Yeah, so that's, and the other thing is that, this 12th house here, that's one we're going to be like really watching over the next few months because you'll see slowly one by one, we're going to end up in end of March with 7 out of 9 classic Jyotish planets in the 12th house. Yeah, I mean, that's going to be fairly intense. Okay, so this is just sort of the building, building up to that kind of energy. Okay. And that's why I thought, like, we may not have a full blaze going on here, but you can see that we're building an intensity. Okay. Yeah, I mean, the other major thing that's, I think, happening here is that when Mercury goes into Capricorn, it's going to be, 5 houses away from K2, and that means we're going to get K2's 5 and 9 aspects. K2 is the south node of the moon. It's like a very chaotic Martian energy. So all about, you know, action and that, but it can be very explosive and hidden and unexpected. Okay. And then the thing is, Mars, even though it seems kind of good that Mars has moved out of its debilitation position in Cancer because it's a ruling planet for the natural zodiac, Mars is now in the third house where it's aspecting K2. So we're going to have Mars and K2 together. That's a very explosive energy, frankly. Okay. Like if you've been watching my videos, it's been pretty tough with when Mars and K2 cross each other. They have a director aspect on each other. Like, for example, was it a couple of years back when Israel got bombed unexpectedly? That was a Mars K2 issue. And then even this past fall when those cell phones were blowing up in people's hands and pockets in Lebanon. That was a Mars K2 issue here. Now, the thing is, we talked about in the beginning of the month, Sun is karko bhava. In the end of the month, Mars is karko bhava. So Mars represents things like siblings and enemies, and it's in the third house of siblings. So this can be issues with like neighbors and siblings here. The other thing is that Sun at the beginning of the month represents presidents or a king, that sort of thing, like a leadership energy, and it's a fire planet, so it's all about action and leadership. Mars is similar, it's also a fire planet, and it's about leadership, but more like hands-on in the trenches type leadership, like more of a CEO, commander in chief, of the army type. It's more of a, um, I would say aggressive, but also like a little bit more, actually quite a bit more erratic than Sun. So, at the beginning of the month, we have issues with one type of leadership planets, and then the end of the month, a different type of leadership planet. The other thing to notice, okay, is that you can see that Mars, once it moves into the third house, is aspecting the Sun. So you actually have these two fire leadership planets stacked up here with also an aspect from K2. Okay, so you're getting the picture here. This is a lot of fire. Okay, that's why I said like it looks like something's sparking off here. Okay, this month at the end of the month. Unfortunately, there's always good things that come out of this. I don't mean to be all doom and gloom or whatever, but this is a fairly gnarly energy. And the thing is, Mars aspecting into Capricorn, Mars is exalted in Capricorn. So Mars is going to be the strongest planet of the 4 planets we have in Capricorn at the end of the month. Okay, so different yogas we have. We have we have a Veshi yoga. We have a Sunafa yoga, so similar to the beginning of the month. So some support around executive function. We have a budhaditya yoga that's qualified, so that's an intelligence combination, but intelligence more along the lines of science and math, more analytical type, genius type stuff. We do have a parivartana yoga between the Jupiter and Venus I mentioned, which should help actually, despite things heating up underneath here. At least Jupiter and Venus are forming what are called a kartari, a Shiva kartari yoga. So because they're the two great benefics, kartari means scissors. It's like kind of cuts through the problems that are coming through here. So that's nice. I mean, luckily, that's there. Saturn is still swa, so Saturn's still strong. We do have a sati again. So what I'm seeing is like losses of loved ones and major support system, oversee initiatives, because again, a lot of the stuff's going on in the 12th house. And trying to disable enemies, and I would say unusual but poetic speech, because not only do we have Rahu in the 12th house potentially covering up these losses here, the K2 is aspect in the second house. So not only do we have Jupiter and Venus in the second house, which can be a lot of lovely, this could be like a singer, like if this is a person chart, this could be like a singer. But we have K2 here. So this could be somebody who's like trying to, I don't know, rationalize or euphemize, what they're saying to like sugarcoat it when it's not entirely true. Okay. So yeah, collective energy. It looks like that's what we're looking forward to in January. Okay, so let's take a look at these two fire planets first and see what they're doing, and then we'll go from there. So January 3rd, Mars has a direct aspect on Venus. So since Venus is with Saturn, we're gonna have Mars and Saturn on Venus. Those two together are like engineering type of energies when you combine Mars and Saturn together. But Moon is going to be there in that mix as well at this time. So Venus and Moon are the two emotional planets. Yeah. So it's kind of like re-engineering a new emotional patterns. Again, there's going to be a shift here. And, that might be like because at this time, Mars may be debilitated, but it's in Pushya Nakshatra, which is a kind of nurturing emotional stability, like attempting to create emotional stability here. Okay. So there may be some efforts along those lines. Then January 10th, Sun enters Uttarashada Nakshatra. So again, this is a piercing sudden victory. So you can, anticipate sudden successful action by father, government, boss, authority. Even though there may be also problems, essentially. because Sun is karako, bhava, nashaya, as I mentioned previously. Then January 12th, Mars enters Punarvasu nakshatra. Now this nakshatra is quite different from Pusha. Pusha, again, is symbolized by a cow's udder. So again, nurturing, providing milk, literally, figuratively, emotional stability, nurturing. Now, Punarvasu is symbolized by a quiver of arrows. So first off, it's a weapon, right? And Punarvasu also indicates travel because it's a quiver of arrows, so that little box you hang on your back, and then you pull the arrows out, string them on your bow, and shoot them off. So because there's this like energy of like having a home base, like the arrows on the back, then going out, picking them up, and putting them back in the box, there's this kind of like having a home base and going out and coming back type energy. So there can be travel here. But because Mars is debilitated, it's going to be kind of a little bit more, it's going to be more of an aggressive energy, less nurturing, and also like restless, I would say, regarding travel and movement forward. And, again, Mars represents military. So this can be where, things are starting to unravel a bit, what are some parts of the world. January 13th, Sun enters Capricorn or Makara. And this is a samkranti, so it's a sun changing signs. I have a whole video on how to work with the energies on that day because they are a little bit different. But this is going to, because Sun was in Sagittarius, which is a dual fire sign. So that's a fire planet and a fire sign. That's a lot of action, but kind of like at cross purposes potentially, because it can go into different directions. But once it goes into Capricorn, Capricorn is a movable earth sign. So this is about taking this, leadership energy, accelerating it, and being like very pragmatic about it. Now the thing is that we have Mars aspecting from Cancer. Cancer is a movable water sign, so there's a lot of emotion there. And again, Mars is around a planet. So, Mars is going to be starting to stir things up here. And Mars, again, is exalted in Capricorn. So it's going to overpower the Sun. Like where the Sun may be more kind of constant, thoughtful, that sort of thing. Mars can be erratic. So this could be accelerating emotional but pragmatic military leadership. Then January 15th, Mars has a direct aspect on the Sun. So there's going to be a jolt of energy here. And this might be like a pointed, very pointed, specific action, away from home or peace. Then January 20th, Mars re-enters Gemini. So Mars is moving from a emotional sign, Cancer, a water sign, to Gemini, which is an air sign, thoughtful, all about thoughts and ideas. So they're going to be generating new thoughts and ideas. Now the thing though is that Mars or Gemini is an enemy sign or shatru sign for Mars. So Mars doesn't function very well. So even though it's out of Cancer, it's debilitated, it's not doing super great in Gemini either. And now it's all about like, fiery ideas, but dual ideas. So it's kind of like, this isn't like a very steady energy for Mars from which it originates. Okay. Now the thing is Mars, even though it moves into Gemini, it's still aspecting to Capricorn. So now we go from like emotional energy to like thought. So it's kind of like some spark, some fiery spark of emotions drives people generally into new ideas. And these new ideas are what are sort of taking hold and, kind of informing action. Yeah. So this can be, though, new ideas, initiatives, and brainstorming, but maybe not, frankly, in the best possible way. Now, one nice thing, though, is that by January 20th, Gemini or Mercury will be aspecting into Gemini, and Mercury owns Gemini. So that will like contain Mars a bit. But Mercury's moves really fast, so that'll be a brief moment. But this may be like, again, like this brainstorming, thing that's happening at the end of the month. Then January 23rd, Sun enters Shravana Nakshatra. So, Shravana is a nakshatra that's all about like oral traditions and storytelling and stuff like that. So, Sun entering this nakshatra, there's going to be like new leadership discussion or speech or news going on. Yeah. some big announcements probably, and like literally even like history-making events potentially with executive leadership. And January 30th, Jupiter has a direct aspect on Sun. So Jupiter is also aspecting into Capricorn, which luckily Jupiter's in Rohini. So again, Rohini is a nakshatra that's very like attractive and lovely and that sort of thing. And Jupiter's a great benefic, so that's really nice. But Jupiter also represents law. So especially when Jupiter is aspecting Sun, Mars, and Ketu with Mercury, it may take the edge off a little bit, but this is like with the, Sun, Mars, Ketu together. This is a lot of aggressive, angry, explosive energy. Yeah. There might be some attempts at diplomacy or temporary ceasefire. But this is going to be, um, a fairly large fire by the end of the month. Okay, in Capricorn. So, yeah, so what I typically do in these monthly videos is I get together a few famous charts, and these charts have a similar pattern to the current sky pattern. So it's a way of kind of, being a little less abstract and general, and kind of demonstrating or embodying, showing how these energies, sky energies, can be embodied in, people's lives and stuff like that. Okay, so this is the first chart. This is a chart of André Michelin. He was born January 16th, 1853 at 7 a.m. in Paris, France. Okay. So, well, I guess I'll give it away right at the beginning, and it'll make a little bit more sense. But he was a guy who developed and manufactured inflatable car tires. Okay. So he also wrote the Michelin. So he was head of the Michelin Tire Company, which is still in existence and considered to be one of the most reputable tire companies in the world. And he also wrote the Michelin Guide. So anyway, and he's also part of the Automotive Hall of Fame. Okay. So let's go through his chart, and again, we're just trying to see how through his life these different energies, which are similar to current sky patterns, played out. So it may give us a little more indication of what's going on for us, right? So the Lagna Nakshatra is Purvashada. This is a sorting energy. Okay. So he's somebody that will like sort through things. And that's part of what he was doing with the tires and stuff. He kept developing like these prototypes and things like that and trying different things. Okay. He actually was an engineer in Paris, and then he left that. I guess his uncle died or got sick or something and had a farm. And so he went there and took that over, and eventually I think called his brother to help him out also. And apparently on this farm there were these different scraps of rubber that they would use for different, patch-up jobs or something like that. And then some biker was going by, and inflatable bike tires were patented first. So some biker was going by with an inflatable tire, and they use these like, scraps of rubber to help the biker out. And that got him thinking, like, what if we did that for cars? Yeah, so the thing about that is that he had to be very inventive, because he had to think, well, how do we even make that happen? Because car tires at that point were not easily removable like they are today. So he had to like basically create a tire that was removable first before the inflatable tire idea could really take off. So anyway, there's a whole process to that, and the sorting through Purvashada energy was important for him to go through that process. Okay. And so the Sun Nakshatra is an Uttarashada, so leadership and victory energy, we've been talking about that. Okay. And then the Moon Nakshatra is in Revati. Revati is it's a nakshatra it's the last one of the 27, and it's all about travel and hospitality. And Moon represents the mind, but also represents like the public. So especially with him writing like the Michelin Guide and that sort of thing, or even like creating an inflatable tire that was easy to change, that actually really bumped up travel possibilities. Because before that, the tires were solid rubber, and so you couldn't really go as far, frankly, on them. So there you go. So yeah, so there's a lot of like travel and hospitality things that came to mind, and also again, moon represents his own mind. So he's thinking like his motivation through all of this is how do we make traveling easier for people, because also those solid rubber tires were very bumpy, made the travel, it wasn't very pleasant to be bumped around on the road for so long. So, yeah, the day lord was Saturn, and the Hurrah lord or hour lord was Mars. So again, as I mentioned, when you have Saturn and Martian energy together, you often get somebody who's like an engineer, which is essentially what he was, inventor type, very like mechanically inclined, which he clearly was. Then the Bertasha was Mercury, which again is ideas, rational logic, and Mars, Sun, Sun. Well, again, those are the two leadership planets. And Mars, Sun, you see are together in Capricorn in the second house. So, um, with that again, he's going to be speaking like an authority, like a leader, which he was. Yeah, so there you go. And let's see what else we have. So this chart represents the current sky pattern. How? Well, Mercury's in Sagittarius, which is going to do pretty soon. And it happens to be in Mula here. Mula Nakshatra is symbolized by a bunch of roots tied together. And that's like planting seeds. I always think of farming when I think of Mula. The thing though is that those seeds, again, most seeds don't make it to the top of the surface of the ground. So it's a precarious journey. And that's the thing is, even when the seed does grow and flourish, there's this kind of dying off that happens. Like the seed dies onto itself to become a whatever, tomato plant or pine tree or whatever. So there's a lot of transformative energy here. Now the thing is, if we look at his chart, up at the top we have Mercury, Venus, and Ketu all at the top. Okay. And this configuration of 3 planets in the Lagna creates what's called a pravraja yoga, which is a life focus yoga. Okay. So he was all a very transformative guy. The other thing is he was, I would imagine, quite an unusual guy because Ketu's here. And the thing is, Mercury, Venus, and Ketu are all in Mula. And Mula is, the star of Mula is Ketu. So basically, all 3 of these planets are in Ketu star. And again, Ketu is a very, like, unusual, unconventional, separatist, kind of oddball type energy. And so when you have Mercury and Venus together, it's going to be like, how do you designing new ideas? Because ideas is like, taking the rational, logical part with the creative, artistic side, design side. Yeah. And Mercury and Venus can also represent travel. And K2 can represent, international, add an international flavor. So international travel. Okay, but essentially, he's planting with these like, prototypes of the inflatable car tire. He's planting seeds of some new inventive design that frankly like completely changed the way we travel. And this was only what, not that long ago. I mean 120, 30 years ago. Yeah, completely changed the way we move through the world. Okay. So the thing is, when you have a pravraja yoga like this, you look towards the strongest planet to see like what the main energy is. And because K2 is in its own star and Venus and Mercury in its own star, I would say that the main energy of this guy is K2. So very, unconventional, probably kind of an oddball guy, off on the farm working with these, scraps of rubber. I mean, that's kind of most people don't do that, right? Even though it was very productive for him, right? So, yeah, so Mercury's in Sag, Mula, Sun and Mars are in Capricorn. Saturn's debilitated in Aries. Okay. And there is a parivartana between Mars and Saturn. So, again, Mars will bring strength to the fifth house here. There's still going to be issues. So I'm guessing this guy probably wasn't, what do I say, like, probably issues along the lines of like children. Although they might have been children, although Jupiter, which is the planet representing children, is in the 12th house of losses, um, and that sort of thing. I don't know. When I was looking up his biography on Wikipedia, it was very short and it was only professional. There was hardly any personal information about him, so I don't know about his personal life, but I'm guessing from here that there were some problems with kids and stuff like that. But I just can't verify it. But yeah. So yeah. But again, the Saturn Mars energy in the fifth house also represents intellect. So he's this very, and again, it's going to be more of a Martian based intellect. Like he was very fiery, innovative mind. And the Saturn was there just to give him like a perseverance and endurance. Because if he just had Mars here, he might be very sharp, but he might not have the endurance to like go through like the newest version of the rubber scraps that he was putting together. And let's see, Mars is also aspecting a Cancer again. So this could mean that this could make for well, what is he going to have in the eighth house here? The eighth house represents deep psychology. He's going to have Sun, Mars, two fire planets, two leadership planets, both in Uttarashada, Victoria. So he's probably a pretty competitive guy. And he's going to have Saturn here as well. And Saturn is in Bharani nakshatra, which is symbolized by a womb. So there's this like, this kind of cycling that's going on here. So it looks like, he was probably a fairly emotional person. But also, even, we're getting Saturn and Mars together in the fifth house of intellect, top of the mind, and in the eighth house of deep mind. I mean, he was just through and through like an engineering type guy, you know. And then also in this chart, we have Jupiter aspecting Taurus, so that's similar as well. Okay, so if we go through house by house, we have a Sagittarius or Dani Lugna here. That's a dual fire sign, so a lot of action here. So he's going to, again, be going back and forth, trying to, like, make these scraps work. And then, Mercury, Venus, K2, all in Mula, and the star of K2. So a lot of unusual energy, innovative energy, creative, calculating, Raja, life focus, K2, the strongest we talked about. The other thing is that Mercury, Venus, and Saturn are bhavam, which is like, so I would even say that there is probably like an obsessive energy here, frankly. With this guy, because when you have Mars and Saturn together, I've been talking about it as engineering, but when you have Mars and Saturn together, this can be like a workaholic type energy or like athlete type energy. I mean, with Mars and Sun, I mean, that's a lot of fire. Just that alone will make somebody potentially like a workaholic. But then when you have Saturn on it as well, it's like they just won't stop. So, so Mercury, bhavat bhavam. So this is going to be, so Mercury is the lord of the seventh house, gone 7 away. This is going to be like one business project after another. Venus is bhavat bhavam. Venus is lord of the sixth house, and it's gone 6 houses away. This is going to be one issue after another, maybe even health issues here. And Saturn's bhavat bhavam. Let's see, Saturn is a leader or owner of the third house, and it's gone 3 houses away. This is going to be one, like, kind of written version after another. This is like the probably Michelin guy. This is like the patent stuff, like the drawing and engineering plans, I guess is what I'm seeing here. Yeah, one after the other. So a lot of projects, a lot of partners, a lot of issues, many technical ideas. That's what you get from all of this. Okay. Then the Lugnatia Jupiter is gone to the 12th house, where it's in Jesta. So his ruling planet has gone to the 12th house of isolated place. So this guy is like an introvert. He's going to his lab or his little, workshop or whatever, and just literally banging this stuff out mentally. And then, he has the ideas, creative ideas, unusual creative ideas. This is Mercury, Venus, K2 all here. And then he's like, well, how do we make this work? And then Jesta is a nakshatra that indicates like a protection. The symbol is a talisman. Okay, so and also, it looks like he just likes to kind of go in his little workshop cave. That's what I'm seeing here. There is an aspect by Mars through parivartana. So this could also be like international legal protection or patents. And so legal protection here, yeah. Introvert, also a traveler, I would say. So we do have a Vashi, solar yoga, Sunafa, lunar yoga, parivartana yoga, as I've talked about. So production, engineering, manufacturing. So again, when you get Mars and Saturn together, not only is it engineering, but they can be manufacturing. Especially because with Mercury aspecting its own sign in the 7th house, this can indicate independent business, entrepreneurial energy, and Rahu is there, and Rahu can indicate ambition. Okay, so, and even like a creative, kind of like a obsessive drive towards this kind of stuff, yeah. And let's see. Then the Chitra graha is planets of vulnerability, Jupiter, Mars, and Venus twice over. So what's kind of funny there is that Jupiter represents children, Mars represents men, Venus represents women, Jupiter and Venus represents people. I don't think he was really a people person, essentially. Yeah, he liked to tinker and work with all that stuff. Yogi, which is a planet, Yogi is a planet representing wealth, is K2, which I'm sure, look at all this K2 energy, not just K2 itself, but, 3 planets in the star of K2 in the top here. He made a lot of money, I'm sure, before he passed. And then the Aviyogi is Rahu here. So there might have been some, I don't exactly know how he made his money. Whether it was through, like maybe he made money through the patents more than initially. I'm sure there was a lot of startup costs here, so I'm not sure how that went. And then the duplicate yogi, which is another planet representing wealth, is Mars. And you can see Mars is exalted here in the 2nd house of assets. And Mars also is aspecting the 11th house of income. So, yeah. And then there is a Sadhisati here. Again, we have Saturn just past the constellation of the moon, so there was a loss of support as well. So again, I'm guessing usually when people have a very scrubbed or very limited, biography, usually that's, I don't know, I usually see that as like a cover up for a lot of personal issues they don't want to like put out in the public domain. So, I've already seen a couple indications here, with the 5th house of children and then that sort of thing. So anyway, there was probably some difficulties there for him personally. Then the second house lord is debilitated. Saturn is aspecting here, although Saturn will be Swa. And then we have an exalted but combust Mars. And then we have Sun here. Both of these are in Uttarashada, and Saturn's aspecting its own. So this is a very strong 2nd house, a very strong speech, but very fiery and technical. I mean, this is not somebody who would like mince words. Very sharp speaker, probably very edgy as well. But you can see successful leader of engineering and manufacturing and like a lot of money here. Yeah. And let's see. On the third house lord is Saturn and Bharani again, aspected by Rahu. So again, there's some unusual technical ideas in writing. I think these are all his like engineering drafts and plans and stuff like that. Then the fourth house lord is Jupiter. Jupiter again has gone to the 12th house of international isolated places. So that can be loss of family line, children. Moon is in Revati, and there's an aspect through Saturn. So again, I would guess that there's some sort of family tragedy here. Again, I can't verify any of this because I don't have more info, but I'm guessing, yeah, from what I see. Fifth house lord is Mars. Its aspect its own debilitated side. So again, engineering, athlete, workaholic energy, in the intellect. Sixth house lord is Venus. But Venus again is in Mula. And yeah, it's gone 6 houses away. So I would say a lot of acute troubles, probably health issues for him, especially if he's dealing with all this rubber stuff and vulcanizing. I don't know how far they went with all this, but there's a lot of toxic elements involved with that sort of work. And because Ketu's at the top here, Ketu and Rahu, those two planets can represent poisoning. So I don't know how he passed away, but that could be part of all this work, got to him eventually for his health. And then breathing these things in, like all the soldering. Like when I've had patients who were like mechanics, or there's a helicopter factory up the road from my office. I have patients from there. A lot of them come in with like very strange health issues because they're all breathing in this air with the fuelants and the coolants and stuff like that. Even like the secretaries and engineers in the back room who aren't working on the front line with helicopters, they come in with all kinds of strange health stuff. I assume because of what they're breathing in. Otherwise, it doesn't make much sense to me. But seventh house Lord is Mercury. It aspects its own. Then you have the aspect of Venus and Saturn, and Rahu is there. Rahu is in Mrigashirsha, so Mrigashirsha is a searching energy. So again, Rahu is an obsessive energy, like searching, seeking, all of this, like going back and forth. I mean, he had a fairly obsessive nature, it seems like. But innovative research, technical ideas, independent business, ambitions for this. In the 8th house, Lord is the Moon, aspected by Mars, Sun, Saturn. Again, pretty hardcore energies here, engineering, leadership. Ninth house Lord is Sun, aspected by Mars, leading, literally CEO, hands-on leadership of an organization. Then 10th house, let's see, 10th house Lord is Mercury. Oh, actually, one thing I just noticed, since he was born in Mercury Dasha, after Mercury comes Venus, after Mercury comes Ketu, and after Ketu comes Venus, like the first half of his life, he was running this Mercury Venus Ketu combination in his first house. I mean, that's pretty interesting. So, let's see, getting back to where was I? The 10th house, is that what I was talking about? Mercury's the Lord, aspected by the moon. So again, work involving public and international travel. 11th house, Lord is Venus. It's aspected by Rahu, Mars, and exalted Saturn is going to be there. Ambition towards mass production of ideas and money, frankly. Then the 12th house Lord is Mars. It aspects its own house, and Jupiter's there. So again, international innovation and protection. So yeah, a pretty interesting guy. And again, we're seeing here like how these energies, like in his chart, this is not like a soft and fluffy cream puff kind of guy. So this is what we ourselves are heading towards, especially towards the end of the month of January. Okay, so now let's talk about Venus in January. Now Venus is going to have an interesting ride because it's going to go from one extreme to the other, frankly. So let's take a look. So January 3rd, Mars has an exact aspect on Venus, and then Venus enters Shatabisha nakshatra. So again, just to remind you, Venus represents things like spouse-like partner, romance, love, loved ones in general, pets, any kind of creative endeavor, travel, finding things in life, and all of that in the beginning of the month is suppressed because Venus is with this massive swath Saturn. Okay, so delays in love and all the nice things in life probably people are experiencing. And also like advisement, Venus also represents the worldly advisor. So so Venus at least is in a sign of, so it's with Saturn, and Saturn's like really slowing Venus down, but at least Aquarius, because it's ruled by Saturn. Saturn is actually a friendly sign for Venus. So at least it has that going, but it's a fixed air sign. So this can be like fixed ideas getting in the way of all this Venusian stuff. So yeah, just like maybe somebody's feeling dutiful in some respects, and that clashes with um, like the relationship or something like I was mentioning, most of the people I talked to for New Year's, it was kind of funny, one after the other. They said, I'm not going to go out. I'm just going to stay home in my pajamas and stuff. Um, and it was kind of like, what was my point? Hold on a second. See if I can get my train of thought back. Yeah, it could be. I mean, it could be like, maybe the reason why there was that Saturn there is that like the Saturn originates from, like the 10th house. Oh, that's what, yeah, actually, that was another part of the story. Like the people I was talking, they were like, oh, I want to stay home. Like, yeah, I was invited out and I'm not going to go. But it's like, I've been working so much, I just feel so tired, you know? And so Saturn is going to bring, fatigue, 'cause Saturn represents like the neuromuscular junction. The other things in the natural zodiac, Saturn is, the ruler of the 10th house of 9 to 5 work. So all of that like overworking stuff is like, smoldering or like snuffing out, all these sort of like lovely Venusian, energies and stuff like that. Because, Venus is like the hostess with the mostest, and it's like extra, Venus is extra, all the extra goodies in life. That's the thing is that, if been working your hiney off, but then like you don't have time to sit back and enjoy these things in life. You're just, exhausted. So anyway, when Mars aspects, again, it's going to be debilitated in Cancer, but it's in Pusha. So there might be some, little attempt here to like bolster Venus, but it's going to be like a very minor attempt. And Venus, again, enters Shatru, and Shatru, again, is translated as 100 healer. So trouble and love, frankly, and all these other things are represented by Venus. So Venus, again, it's going to be submerged under all this, Saturnian energy. But like when you have, again, Mars and Saturn together, it's like an engineering. So it might be like a calculated but minor move in the category of relationships. um, yeah. But again, probably snuffed out potentially. So, and the thing is that there's a dark moon in there as well. So there's some emotional energy, but again, fairly snuffed out by the intensity of Saturn. This could also be like upsetting, changing an emotional rhythm or paradigm. So it might be kind of like a sudden shift, sudden gesture somebody makes that is unexpected, that sort of thing. A little like pulse, some pulse, but it doesn't exactly create like a steady rhythm, I would say, because Saturn's so strong. Yeah, so difficulty and probably maybe even illness with loved ones, because again, we're talking about Shatru, which is a very health-related nakshatra, and then Saturn's in Purva Bhadrapada, funeral pyre. So yeah, potentially. Um, Venus also represents vehicles, so it literally could even be like a mechanical problem with cars, that sort of thing. So 16th of January, Venus enters Purva Bhadrapada nakshatra. Well, things are going to get, really tough for Venus. If things are not tough for Venus in the first 2 weeks of January, the second 2 weeks are going to be tougher. Venus, when it enters Purva Bhadrapada, again, now Venus is on the funeral pyre as well as Saturn. So this could be like ending of relationships, or like I looked at whose chart? Simone Biles. She's a Olympic gymnast, a U.S. Olympic gymnast, and she has Venus and Purva Bhadrapada in Aquarius. She doesn't have Saturn with it, but I was talking about in her chart because I went through her chart. There's a whole separate video on her chart that I've done. So yeah, I was talking about for her, Venus on the funeral pyre. This is literally like love being incinerated. It could be, it could also be with Venus and Saturn together, like really deeply transforming ideas about love or loved ones. Because again, Aquarius is like a fixed air sign. This could also be like trauma bonding, frankly. Like I did a chart, birth chart analysis for a psychologist not too long ago, and she was an Aquarius rising, and she has Venus and Purva Bhadrapada right at the top. of her chart in the lugna. And that's what she does. I mean, she herself, she told me, I was like, it looks like, there's a lot of trauma bonding going on. She's like, yeah, I've been doing that my whole life. And then also, with her patients, that's another kind of trauma bond, with psychologists. It's just like, they're not sitting around planning parties, they're talking about deeps, and it's a very helpful thing to do potentially, and healing thing to do, but it's not fun and light and easy, it's yeah. So, and also with Venus being on Purva and then with Saturn as well, this could be like the antithesis of all the nice things Venus represents. So art and music and dance, all the arts and pets and travel and, even fine food and, all this sort of thing, social grace, all burned up. Okay. So especially like when you have Venus getting like burnt to a crisp here, and then on the other side, you have Mars and Sun and Ketu, ganging up in Capricorn. And again, Capricorn, the ruling planet of Capricorn is Saturn in Purva. That's like a major shift in aggression energy and suppression of any sort of compassion or diplomacy that Venus might add to the mix. Okay, you getting the picture here? Again, the whole, the whole vibe here is again sparking a flame or sparking a fire, right? So now you're seeing it probably. Okay, so then, okay, as if that's not enough. So then 17th through 20th of January, Venus and Saturn actually get into a planetary war, or graha yuddha. This is going to stabilize both planets and all the houses they represent. Okay. Yeah, and so by this time, Mars is so close to the Cancer Gemini line, it's basically sandhi. It's within the first or last degree on either side. I don't remember which side it's on, but either way. Debilitate. So it must be in the Cancer side. And Punarvasu. So a debilitated sun, double unstable Mars, which is already an erratic planet, in Punarvasu. So again, that quiver of air is like there's going to be like what just came through my head, that song shatru the heart, was a Bon Jovi song, and you're to blame, you give bad love a bad name. Wow, that just came through. That's very strange. So yeah, this is going to be pretty gnarly here. Now wait, because things are changing for Venus. But yeah, like towards mid to end month here, things are going to be pretty intense. The moon at this time is in Leo. So actually you have, again, Venus and moon both in their energies in this Aquarius thing again, because Leo is the opposite sign to Aquarius. So a very emotional, you know, um, fight, frankly. So this could be the end of a loved one, relationships, notions of love and romance, advisors. Again, Venus is a worldly advisor. Major reconfiguring of things. Because again, Saturn has been in Aquarius. So this is a building up. This is a final last show of what's going on here. What's been building up in Aquarius is Saturn's been in Aquarius for 2 years now. Yeah. So hold on to your seats, folks. Then finally, January 27th, Venus enters Pisces or Mina. It's exaltation sign. Woo! Yay. Okay. And the thing is, Venus is going to be in Pisces until May 31st. That's a full 4 months of Pisces in its exaltation sign. So, again, pretty intense the next few weeks, and then better, much better. The other thing is that when Venus goes into Pisces, as I mentioned, Pisces is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter happens to be in a sign of Taurus, which is ruled by Venus. We get a parivartana with Jupiter, and that parivartana with Jupiter, excuse me, is going to last until May 14th, because May 14th, Jupiter's moving out of Taurus and Gemini. Okay, so it's like you have the good guys ganging up, Venus and Jupiter, right? The two natural benefics, and then the bad guys ganging up. You have Mars and Ketu and Sun, and then with Mercury. Mercury can go either way. So basically, you have 4 malefic planets ganging up in Capricorn. This is a huge contrast of energies. And then the thing is, what's going to happen at the end of March is they're all going to end up in the same sign. So, so the thing is, even though this sounds really great, and I'm glad it's here, okay, to counterbalance all this Mars, Sun, Ketu, Mercury energy, this is not going to be all sunshine and unicorns, okay? Because Venus is going to be with Rahu, and again, Rahu's like a unexpected, you know, unusual hidden type planet. Although with Rahu here, Rahu will amplify or project energy of Venus and Jupiter, because that's what Rahu does. But we're going to have two eclipses on the Rahu Ketu axis in Virgo and Pisces. That's going to happen in March. And Venus is going to go through 3 planetary wars. So, not just one, like the one I talked about in 17th, 20th of January with Saturn. There's more. Okay, it's going to go into a planetary war with Mercury and then Saturn once or twice more. So, Venus is not out of the woods, but Venus is in a much better position once it's in Pisces than being, smushed, steamrolled by Saturn. And then there's going to be this, again, pravraja yoga, 7 planets in one, or the energy of, 7 planets in one house. That's going to be, wow, pretty interesting. Okay, but the good news is Jupiter and Venus together will protect and smooth the edges of all this energy. It'll be mostly protect for inanimate thing. It will not protect all people and relationships. And then the other thing is this Jupiter Venus is creating a Shubha Kartari yoga, um, you know, over Aries. Yeah, like in the natural zodiac chart I started with. Okay. Then January 31st, Venus enters Uttar Bhadrapada Nakshatra. This will also be better for Venus because Uttar Bhadrapada Nakshatra is back legs of Shrimpire. Purva Bhadrapada is the front legs of Shrimpire. Purva Bhadrapada is like just full on smoke and flames. So here you go, more fire energy. Smoke and flames, cremation, turning over, burning to dust type of stuff. Uttar Bhadrapada has that destructive energy, but there's this like kind of distance or surrender energy associated with it. So it's kind of like, let it burn and it could be like a phoenix type energy, frankly, especially because Venus is a planet that represents like revival. So this could be this like, things are sliding down and all of a sudden it's like, okay, Venus has come to save the day, almost like in the movies with the superhero who's like, they're weak and they're beat up by the bad guys, and then they kind of go off and slink off, and then they kind of get some, pep talk from somebody, or, and then they're like, get their strength back, and then they kind of go back into the fight, that kind of thing, help save the day. So yeah, that's going on. So what does it say? Becoming a bit detached to all this change and transformation. So it's taking a step back from all of the stuff that's going on, getting a little bit of perspective, and then having like a spiritual release or surrender moment to all of this stuff that's going on above. It's like, okay, if it's meant to be, let it go, that kind of thing, or, if being in alignment with nature or divine source or whatever, trying to understand that and channel that energy in terms of maybe being not so personally attached to any particular outcome, but trying to work for the greater good. Yeah, so there you go. Venus, wild ride this month. Okay, so here's another famous birth chart. You may or may not heard of this lady. Her name is Duti Chand. She's an Indian Olympic athlete. Specifically, she's a sprinter. I don't know if she currently is, but she was a national champion, if not currently, or has records in the 100-meter dash. Yeah. So her chart, also her personal birth chart, represents a lot of the energies going on in the sky. And so, we'll see how this, again, these energies are playing out, okay? So she was born February 3rd, 1996. I don't have a birth time for her, so this is a sun rising chart for her, Surya Lagna, okay? But she was born near Jaipur, India, okay? The Lagna Nakshatra, I don't know because I don't have a birth time for her. The Sun Nakshatra is in Shravana, so again, news of leadership, storytelling news of leadership, which, again, besides being a Olympic athlete, there's another reason why her chart's important, but we'll get into that. Okay. So the moon nakshatra is in Punarvasu, probably Pusha. Okay. I think until about 2:30 in the morning it was in Gemini, but most of the day it's in Cancer, which would make it a swan moon, a very strong moon. Um, so not really sure here. It could be either one. But so if it's in Punarvasu, this could be more of a sharpness and travel energy. If it's in Push, it could be more of a support energy. The other thing is if Moon is in its own sign, it's going to be a lot stronger than if Moon was in Gemini here. Okay. Yeah. The day lord probably Saturn from 7:12 in the morning. The Harala word, I don't know. The birth shop probably Saturn from 9:31 in the morning. So there's a lot of Saturnian energy here. Okay, potentially. And so Saturn, you can see, is in its own sign of Aquarius in Purvabhadrapada as it currently is. And it's with Venus as it currently is. And you can see they're within 1 degree of each other. So we have a planetary war of Saturn and Venus in Purvabhadrapada in Aquarius, just as we will have at the end of the month. Okay, so we'll unpack what this means. So hold on a second. So just to reiterate, like what are the similarities between her chart and current sky patterns? Well, Mercury's in Sagittarius again. It's in Purva nakshatra this time. So rather than Mula, like we saw in Andrei Mishlan's chart, which was more of a destructive growth, revolutionary type energy, Purvashada is a winnowing, it's symbolized by winnowing basket. So it's like sorting through ideas and sorting through speech, because Mercury represents speech and ideas. And you can see Mercury is with Jupiter in the 12th house of losses. Okay, so Mercury's in Sag, Sun and Mars in Capricorn again. Hello, a lot of leadership energy. And again, right at the top here. Okay. And the thing is, Mars is combust again, like it was in Andrei Michelin's chart. So internally, she's going to be quite fiery, more than she presents on the surface. Because when a planet is combust, you won't see so much of the external features of that. Okay, this is also important as I talk about health issues that she has that were really important. Okay, so just remember she has that combust Mars here. Okay? Then Saturn, Swan, Aquarius, and planetary with Venus. Okay, it's like ding, ding, ding. It's like how specific can you get? Then Mars is aspecting Cancer. So we have Mars and Cancer energy again. And we also have Rahu Ketu on the Virgo Pisces axis. So they're in opposite signs, but you still got their energies going on here. Okay. So yeah, a lot going on for this lady. All right. So just so we understand, why I chose this chart to begin with. Okay. Just to see the alignment. Now let's go through house by house. So the Surya Lugna, she's a Capricorn, Makara, a sun rising person here. The movable earth sign, so a lot of, tangible, practical energy. Okay. This can literally also, all this fire, like, it's kind of funny. The reason why I even know about this woman, frankly, is that I like to watch movies, which I think most of you know if you watch my videos here. There is this movie, a Hindi movie I watched called Rashmi Rocket, which is about her because she's so fast. They, said she moved like a rocket. Well, you have Sun and Mars together, the two fire planets here. I mean, that's a rocket. That's rocket energy right there, right at the top of her Surya Lagna here. So anyway, and then movable Earth, like literally, I could see her pounding away, on the Earth, like jetting forward, as she's running, doing her 100-meter dash or whatever. So Sun is in Shravana. There's some big story here, and we'll talk about what the big story. I mean, part of the big story is like she was a national champion, one of the few people to get to this level of sports in her field, and is a Indian athlete and is a female Indian athlete. But then there's another big piece of the story, which is quite unusual. So let me get there. hold on. And then Mars is in Dhanishta. Okay, so Dhanishta is like a rhythm. So this again could be her, like Mars is an action planet. It's a movable planet. This could be like a, um, like a rhythm type stuff. Part of it's going to be external because the sun is there, but part of it's internal as well. Okay. The other thing about Mars is Mars represents male energy. Okay. So, and then with the sun and Mars both being fire planets, a lot of leadership, competitive person, a builder, a nurturer, because at least she has the moon there as well. Okay. Potentially, if moon is in, Pusha. I mean, even if the moon is not in Pusha, if it's in Purvasi, moon being in its own sign is going to bring a lot of nurturing and intuitive energy. Okay. Again, we're not quite sure about that. The thing that was Lugnatia is Swa, Saturn, and Purvadrapada. Okay, so Saturn on the funeral pyre again. Okay, and Saturn being with Venus, okay, and Venus being the prototypical like female energy. Okay, the thing with her, part of the reason why she's famous is not just that she's a fast runner, for India, but the thing is, Mars being combust in Dhanishta will be like suppression of male characteristics, literally. Because again, the sun Mars is in her first house of physicality. And then this massive Saturn on Venus, and the thing is, you can see Venus is in the last degree. So not only is Venus in war with Saturn, but it's in the last degree. So Venus is sandhi, very unstable Venus. Saturn is suppressing all this Venusian, suppressing all this female energy. Part of the reason why she was famous is because she was caught up in this whole big controversy for years about hyperandrogenism in female athletes and whether they should be able to compete or not. And that's actually probably, frankly, why she's more famous. I don't know. Maybe both. So yeah, so she has a medical condition of hyperandrogenism where she has a higher level of testosterone than most women. And so this was discovered, and she got a lot of flack from it, had to go through all these trials and tribulations and legal suits and all this to prove that she should be able to compete as a female athlete in like the Olympic Games and other, international games and stuff like that. So I guess what it came down to was like they didn't have any research at the time that could clearly indicate that having a higher level of testosterone would actually improve athletic performance or something like that. So I don't know where all this stands now. I think this is like a while ago. So this might all be different now, but it changed. They went back and forth, with some of these games and like their rules or their rulings on how to deal with these sorts of issues. Right. So even in like her body, you can see there's this like kind of conflict or contrast, the female energy, the Venusian energy being suppressed, and the kind of more male energy coming forward to some degree. But again, Mars is, at least in her chart, is combust. But in our current, sky pattern, Mars is not combust. It's going to be full on Mars. Okay, so any of this like competitive, edge she had internally, even in her personality, not just her body, like her hormone, profile, um, gave her a bit of edge. But like now, Mars is going to be full out, like on fire, frankly. Okay. But you can see this is another example of like how these energies of like, again, suppressing the feminine Venus energy and really lighting up again with the sun and Mars together. And we don't even have K2 in this mix. Yeah. So yeah, you get the point here. Yeah. Okay. So let me go back to the notes here. So the Swa, Saturn, and Purvadrop has gone to the second house of Arta. So that's a wealth building. So she was very pragmatic. Like, when she, started making or whatever, she was, supporting her family financially and all that. And let's see. So, but it's with Venus. So delays against suppression of female energy, feminine energy, like literally hormones even. And again, the Saturn with Venus, is projecting into our eighth house of sexual system, like medically. And then what else does she have? So, and Mars is also, so again, literally the Mars, Venus, Saturn stuff, and Sun is the dispositor of this eighth house. Um, this is like, literally all going on in her sexual system, not just her outward presentation. And then we have Jupiter aspecting this eighth house. Jupiter represents children, but Jupiter is in Mula. Again, that kind of destructive turning over energy. And because Jupiter in Mula in and of itself can indicate like lack of children, but Jupiter again is in the 12th house of losses and expenditures. And the thing is, Venus is the lord of her fifth house of children, and Venus is very compromised here, especially because of this hyperandrogenism situation. I'm guessing most likely she's not able to have children based on this pattern in the chart. Okay, so what do we have here? Well, we have a Ruchika yoga, pancha mahapurusha yoga. That's one of the 5 great beings. This is Mars exalted in the lagna here, in a Kendra. She also has a kartari yoga, okay, which is a Shubha kartari yoga. So kind of like the current sky pattern, she has a Venus Jupiter, flanking the 2 great benefics, flanking the lagna. This is a scissor. This is going to help her cut through all of this flack that she's getting. She got it from 2 sides, right? So even if she didn't have the hyperandrogenism, oh, that's the other thing about her. She is the first or one of the few national athletes in India who's outwardly like LGBTQIA, in a same-sex relationship or whatever. So, just being female, if she didn't have the hyperandrogenism thing, and then if she didn't have the, being a lesbian thing, just being a female athlete in this, time, very challenging. Okay, and then the hyperandrogenism thing, another issue. And then, the LGBTQIA stuff as well. Okay, so yeah, she's had to go through a lot. And luckily, she has this Sun, Mars, and this Mars exalted because this is what gave her strength and fire to not back down from all these, issues here. Yeah, so, okay. So she also, again, the Kartri yoga. She has a Chandramangala yoga, so that's some money coming in for her. This Mars, Moon. Again, if Moon is here, this is a strong money combination. Again, she's very pragmatic. She is a Surya, Lugna, and Capricorn. I mean, they're like the most pragmatic. They're like builders. Shidra Graha is Saturn and Mars. Those are the only 2 I can identify because we don't have an exact birth time here. But Saturn, so again, all this oppression, traditional values, ideas. And again, the 2nd house also represents family. So very traditional, even though she was supporting the family, they were no supporting her. Like, I guess, she had a bunch of siblings. One of them, they support her in different things. Like one sister was a runner. That's how she got into it. I don't know if it's the same sister or a different one, but like really turned on her when she became, openly gay. Or, in like, the village where she was, they were, very conservative. They really were slinging stuff her way, it was very counter to what, they thought. So a lot of pushback from people. And then Mars as well. So, this could be, again, enemies, a lot of enemies here, really strong enemies. The other thing is this Sun, is a dispositor for the 8th house of deep psychology and long chronic issues here. So a lot of this stuff is not going away. I mean, you can't sort of take that back once you out yourself, as being gay. It's kind of like a done deal, right? So it's a major step. The hyperandrogenism thing, maybe she takes some really strong suppressive drugs, but I think she said she didn't want to do that. So yeah, I mean, this is like a chronic state of being for her, mentally and physically, because again, it's the lugna, it's the personality and the outward presentation, physical body. So again, conservative family, a lot, and also like this Mars could be a lot of sports injuries and stuff like that. It could be a problem. The yogi is Mercury, so that's in the 12th house. Ava yogi is Mars, so it's strong though. You know, she grew up in poverty, and then the duplicate yogi's moon. So eventually she makes money when she runs the right planets here. And even now, I think she's currently in the Mercury Rahu period. So Mercury is in the 12th house of losses, and Rahu is in the ninth house of like government jobs and institutions and stuff like that. So the thing is, she participated in the 2024 Paris Olympics, but then retired, announced her retirement, which makes sense with Mercury in the 12th house. She's going to go off, in the sunset essentially there. And then Rahu, she has a job given to her by the government since she was an athlete. Because the thing is, like, a lot of these athletes, they bring, all this like fame and medals and stuff to the country. But then once they're done, a lot of them have a hard time. Like Jesse Owens, I went through his chart. I mean, he was like how many Olympic medals did he win? 4 or 5 Olympic medals in the Berlin Olympics. And then he, became like a gas station attendant. He couldn't get a job. So she works for some mining corporation as some executive officer or whatever. So, she's in her 12th house, ninth house energy now. Yeah. All right. So let's go through the other houses. So the second house I've been talking about, Swa, Saturn with a sandhi, Venus in war, conservative working family, probably pretty poor. But, again, money will come in eventually. Also, delayed speech. There might have been some problems there. I don't know. I didn't read that in her bio, but I'm guessing there might have been some delayed speech. Third house lord is Jupiter. It's gone in the 12th house of Mula, very destructive. And then Ketu's there, also very destructive. Ketu's in Revati, though. So again, there could be, I would see losses through siblings, which I mentioned, and even her, I guess the sister wanted to expel her from the family for announcing her, or being gay, being openly gay. So, Then fourth house lord is Mars, very strong. It aspects his own house, so very strong, family line. So, that's the thing is she got a lot of pushback from her family. There's arguments here. Also, it's Saturn's, aspecting here where it's debilitated. Jupiter's aspecting here. So, fourth house represents home, and she left home because of these energies here. She left home when she was young to do sports training and stuff like that. The other thing is that with this Mars owning the fourth house can represent genetic issues. So there was probably some genetic predisposition, frankly. She probably wasn't the only one in the family with hyperandrogenism, that's affecting her. Then let's see, but it makes her like a fighter, genetic disease, family, poverty, disruption of home, all the stuff I talked about. Fifth house I mentioned already is Venus, this like, very compromised Venus, lord of the fifth house of children. And then Jupiter, the Jiva Karaka for children being Mula in the 12th house, probably because it's not in the cards for her, at least biologically. And then sixth house lord, Mercury is in Purvashada, aspect its own. So, and then also is aspected by Jupiter. So that's what I thought was interesting was Mercury and Jupiter are the two communication planets, like speech planets, and they're in the sixth house of enemies. So this is all the hate speech she got, more than like physical, getting beat up. She got beat up verbally and emotionally. Yeah, people slinging things that are, hate speech. Yeah. So then the seventh house lord, maybe Swamoon, aspected by Mars and Sun. So there could be some independent business here, leader of public women, but the thing is Mars is debilitated in the seventh house here. So there might be some energy. Like I think she had sponsorships by like different shoe company, the kind of typical athlete stuff, but that probably dried up because she announced her retirement from sports or whatever. And again, this isn't super stable here. If Moon is there, there might be some possibility, but especially when she's running Moon. because after Moon comes Mars. So there might have been some, I don't know how far along she is. If she's in Mercury now, Saturn, Mercury. No, she's because she started off in Saturn. She's in Mercury now. I mean, she's not going to really run these seventh house planets for very long. So not long enough to really create a huge business. Like Andre Michelin is very different, right? When he had Mercury, um, um, aspecting the seventh house of independent business, and again, Mercury in its own house in almost any sign, not just the seventh, will indicate usually some degree of entrepreneurship, especially because Mercury represents business and a lot of business skills like accounting and marketing and stuff like that. And he was born in the Mercury period. So see how it's different because she ran different planets. So, and yeah, so I don't think she's a lifelong entrepreneur type person. And then let's see what else. Seventh house. So eighth house I mentioned. So the disposer is Sun, aspect by Saturn, Venus, Jupiter, Mars. So on a deep level, like all of this stuff, like the eighth house is also controversy and scandal. I mean, it's like look at all these planets in here, and opposing, planets and strong Mars and strong Saturn and massively compromised Venus. I mean, this is no picnic, going on in the eighth house. And this is also deep psychology as well as sexual system here. So it's like, war of the sexes in her body and in her mind, essentially. And in her hormone panel, like it's kind of wild. Then the ninth house lord is Mercury. So again, Mercury, she's running Mercury Rahu, and here she is with this government job. And Rahu's in Chitra. Chitra is a architecture type nakshatra. So again, she's working for a mining organization, some sort of like a structural, mineral structural type of things, which is again like the symbol for Chitra is a gemstone. So leading an institute, again, she's an executive of one, government appointments, father being a builder. I think her father, I read, was like a weaver. So again, he's like creating structures for baskets and stuff, or chairs, or I don't know what he was weaving, but like some sort of product like that. And then the 10th house lord, again, this very compromised Venus, very unlikely to hold like a regular 9 to 5 job. So she got lucky with this government appointment, frankly, because I mean, her strongest houses are going to be her lugna and then her second house. Um, Yeah, maybe her 12th house as well. This again kind of reminding me of like the Simone Biles chart, where Simone Biles is like, she gets into these different like corporate sponsorships, and she's like, has this like massive Instagram following and all this kind of stuff. So I think she does a bit of that because, again, it's more of her as a person that's sort of the, frankly, commodity here, sellable point, you know. And then 11th house, Lord was Mars, so very strong, but it's aspected by Saturn. So again, social issues, which again, we know that, right? A very conservative, deep conservative society she grew up with and problems there. 12th house Lord is Swa, Jupiter, and Mercury. So protection from losses. I mean, again, she's still, kicking, right? She's still living life, doing her thing, and she's pretty young. I don't even think she's 30 yet. How old is? No, she's not 30 yet, right? 1996. This is also somebody who like speak and news abroad and stuff like that. So she might get involved. Maybe she'll get involved with some of these hyperandrogenism or LGBTQIA groups and stuff like that. That's a possibility, I think. Yeah, so that's this lady, and again, how her chart, in a very personal way, is demonstrating a lot of energies in the current sky. Okay, so then if we look at the moon in January, and I always do separate videos on the new and full moon, so if you want to go into a lot of detail, in those moments in time, those are available. January 13th, we have the full moon or Purnima in Gemini, Mithuna, and Punarvasu Nakshatra. So Gemini is a dual air sign. It's a lot of thinking, and it's ruled by Mercury, the other mind planet, because Moon and Mercury, the two mind planets. So a lot of thinking, processing, that sort of thing. It's a neutral sign for the moon. And then Mercury is going to be aspecting at this time. So you're going to have the two mind planets in Mercury. A lot of thinking and processing. Sun is going to be aspecting as well, although the sun is shifting that day into Capricorn. So, making executive decisions to move, travel, focus, that sort of thing. Because there's going to be more. Sun is aspecting into Gemini, and then again, Mars is moving into Gemini. So, Geminis are going to have more kind of action orientation, coming up for them. Then January 29th, there's a new moon or Amavasya in Capricorn and Makra. That's going to be Shravana Nakshatra. It's another neutral sign for a moon. It's a movable earth sign, so much more practical. But it's going to be conjoined by Sun, Mercury, aspected by Mars, Ketu, Jupiter. And the thing is, this particular new moon is going to be Sudarshan. Okay. So all of this like chaotic energy I've been talking about in Capricorn is going to be like front and center. Sudarshan means like the Lugna, Sun, and Moon are all lined up. That gives a very strong focus because it's kind of like when I go through these different charts, and some of them are like a moon rising chart, and some are a sun rising chart, and some are a, whatever, constellation or house rising chart or whatever. When you have the house and the sun and the moon all lined up, it's like getting very clear and focused. Okay, so this is going to be a very intense. And the new moon, it's like the moon is like weak because it's new. And it's there with so this could be a very intense, but clear, decisive, unexpected executive, military, legal action or declaration, frankly. Okay. And again, the dispositor here is the Swa, Saturn, and Purva. This is, again, not going to be an easy breezy moment. Okay. I can tell you that already, but I'll get into the details, come closer to January 29th. Okay. Then Mercury, the other mind planet in January, January 4th, Mercury enters Sagittarius and Danu. So it's going to be going through some transformation here. Again, Mula is that roots tied together, transformative energy. It's a neutral sign for Mercury. It's a dual fire sign. So the mind is going to be quite active, and it's with Sun. So a lot of energy here for Mercury. Mercury, though, is going to be aspecting its own sign of Gemini. So at least it should, bring some strength to Gemini. Contemplating actions more than emotions, because Mercury's leaving Scorpio, which is a fixed water sign, an emotional constellation. Energetic, but turning thoughts into action. Okay, so we're shifting here. And again, planting new seeds. But, we'll see which of them survive. That's always the case with seeds, planting seeds. On January 13th, Mercury enters Purvashada Nakshatra. So then we're kind of lifting up and we're sorting through and thinking through the above situation. January 18th, Mercury goes combust or asta. So because it's eclipsed by the sun being so close, it's going to become more internal. Some more thoughts and plans, less talking, less action. More internal than external action. January 22nd, Mercury enters Uttarashada Nakshatra. So this might be sudden initiative, clarity, success. Because let's see, conjoined by Mars. Well, it'll be conjoined with Mars in Gemini, not necessarily in. It'll be aspected by Mars in. Let me see. I got to rewrite this. It'll be aspected by Mars, so there'll be like, and Mars will be in Punarvasi by then. So there'll be some sharp, decisive action here. Then let's see. And then the next day, Mars an exact aspect on Mercury. Both will be sandhi. So it'll be like an unstable but forceful thought or action plan going on here. Then January 24th, Mercury enters Capricorn. This is a neutral sign. For Mercury, it's a movable earth sign. So again, getting into that very practical, tangible energy instead of emotional, instead of theoretical. And it's going to be conjoined by Sun. It's aspected by Mars, Ketu, Jupiter. So again, this is going to be the storm, that's building here in Capricorn, converting thoughts and plans into tangible results. And then when Mercury goes into Capricorn, that means Ketu's energy is going to aspect 5 and 9 houses away, bringing more of Ketu energy to those houses. So that's going to be the other earth sign. So it's going to bring K2 to Capricorn and K2 to Taurus as well. So that's going to also influence that Jupiter that's in Taurus. Yeah, so again, more chaotic, unexpected, explosive, legal, military energies going on here, flying around. 27th of January, Mercury is an exact aspect on K2, sudden, aggressive, disruptive change to the above. This could also be innovative, like we saw with Andre Michelin when he had Mercury and Venus with K2, all in a nakshatra owned by K2. A lot of innovation going on here. Okay, this could also be confusion. K2 and Rahu by themselves without interacting with anything. It can be like confusion, delusion, illusion, obsession, compulsion. They're not really, they don't play by the rules. And then January 30th, Mercury enters Shravana Nakshatra. So this might be some sort of authoritative speech. But again, something that's not really straightforward, because you're going to have Mercury and Mars together, those energies together. And Mercury's I mentioned before, when you have Mercury and Mars together, that can be like basically a liar's combination. Like because Mars can represent thieves and Mercury represents the mind. So when you have theft of mind, it's like theft of clarity, theft of honesty, or lying. And then K2's in there. So that's like a double deceptive type of energy going on here. And in Shravana, so there's this might be some big blow up of some story, like some big scandal that arises, if not literally like a military, conflagration or, outburst or something like that. Yeah, so, Mercury is going to be going through it this month as well. Okay, then we have our final chart here. And this one was pretty interesting, I would say. Like, it was kind of shocking. I'll go through it, though. So this chart is for the debut of the iPhone. All right. So if you don't have one, I'm sure you've seen one, probably, or know what they are. So on January 7th, 2007, so not that long ago, is it 20 years? No, not quite 20 years. 18 years ago in San Francisco, California at 9:41 a.m. And that 9:41 a.m. time is very important. Okay, so remember that. Steve Jobs, the founder, and I don't know if he was CEO at the time of Apple, he presented the iPhone at a Macworld conference or a convention in San Francisco. So this is where it's like, bring it out into the world. Okay. Yeah, so San Francisco, California, USA. Okay. So this chart is pretty intense. I mean, I was kind of blown away by this chart, frankly. And I think you'll see why as I go through house by house. Like, it's pretty hardcore. So Lugna Nakshatra was shot to be Shah. So again, hard to heal, right? 100 healers, yeah. And we have Rahu at the top here. Rahu again, obsession, compulsion, hidden, unexpected. Rahu is also ambition. Rahu is also technology and the internet, literally the internet. When I think of like internet, if I would pick one planet, I would think Rahu. Okay. And Rahu is being aspected by Mars and Saturn. So again, from Andre Michelin's chart, Mars and Saturn together, technology, but engineering and endurance. And again, this is all happening in Aquarius of fixed ideas. Okay. You're already starting to get maybe a vibe here. Okay. Now the Sun Nakshatra is in Purvashada, so that's sorting energy. And also Mercury as well. Okay. Both Sun and Mercury are in this Purvashada sorting energy. Within 2 or 3 days, both of them are shifting into Uttarashada. So again, sudden piercing victory. Okay, this was a big win for Steve Jobs and Apple and the whole engineering crew going on here that created this, device. Actually, it's kind of funny was that when I was like looking at this chart, I kept thinking of like aliens have landed. It's like, wow, that was like pretty intense. Like the images going through my head, or like the Transformers, or some massive juggernaut, technology robot, type thing that just took over the world. I mean, that's kind of the energy of this chart, frankly. That's pretty intense. Um, and then the moon nakshatra is in Uttar Falguni. Uttar Falguni is symbolized by a hammock. Okay. But it's not just like pure hedonism because the hammock is like relaxation and rest and vacation and the fire, having a nice cup of something frosty in your hand that you're drinking on the beach, that kind of energy. Uttar Falguni also has the energy of purpose. So enjoyment with purpose. Okay. Now, the thing is, the moon is in the 8th house of chronic issues, death, destruction. And moon is the ruler of the 6th house of enemies. So this is like decimating, having fun and purpose, and specifically decimating your enemies, competitors in this field. Okay. So far, I don't think I have to go through much sure. Just what I've talked about so far, you can seeing like why I was thinking like the aliens have landed, and taking over, the world kind of thing. The day lord happens to be Mercury, and the hour lord's also Mercury. So again, business, rational, logical mind, uh, business, decisions, thoughts, writing, education, and Mercury is aspecting its own house in the 5th house of advice, and also a stage. The 5th house is a natural stage, creativity. Okay, so Mercury is in the 11th house of clubs, groups, and society and income. Okay, and when you have Mercury and Mars together, like you have, that can symbolize computers, frankly, because you have the thoughts with the device, like the tangible, physical device. Okay, now Mars is gandanta here. Mars is very unstable because it's in the 1st degree of Sagittarius. So Mars is in Mula. Mula again can represent death and destruction, right? The deity associated with Mula is Nritya, a form of the goddess Kali, the goddess of death and destruction. So again, there's another indication of like destroying enemies in public, frankly. Because again, this is a big group, right? Mac World Convention. All the technology, folks are in that room, and it's like, boom, we're just going to blow up their minds, like literally. Sun and Mars together, leadership, Mercury, thought leadership. This is complete dominance of this world, this technology world here. Okay. Yeah, and the thing is, that's what he's speaking about, right? Because in the 5th house of intellect, we have Mercury, Swa, in its own sign. We have Sun aspecting here. We have Mars aspecting here. We should. I need another arrow. We should have Jupiter aspecting here. I need to put in a few more arrows with Jupiter. Jupiter aspecting here. Rahu aspecting here. This is a huge, like, complete takeover of internet technology. Because this is the first device that actually allowed you to carry the internet in your pocket or in your purse or whatever. There's a major disruption here. And then get this even more so. The Bertasha was Sun, Mercury, Venus, Mercury. Okay, so Sun and Mercury we've been talking about leadership. Sun piercing leadership, takeover of business. Yeah, and then Venus is in the 12th house of losses. Venus represents social grace, represents, compassion, represents relationships. So with this massive takeover, there's also loss of relationships here. And also the moon being in the 8th house of chronic problems. It can be chronic mental health issues, potentially. And also, but this Venus in the 12th house, like losses, and Venus is in is in Shravana. So the loss of like, speaking and storytelling and stuff like that. Yeah. And Venus is like the lord of the 4th house of home and family lineage. And it's also the lord of the ninth house of, what is it, authority and father. So Venus is the lord of the fourth house of home and lineage and mother, and also the lord of the ninth house of father. This is like a loss through generations. This is the social loss that's also going to accompany this massive, decimation of business competitors, creating this juggernaut, technology that people are addicted to. But frankly, through the generations, there's going to be emotional losses here because Venus and Moon are the two emotional planets, and they're the ones in negative signs. So again, there's like this huge accomplishment on one side, then there's also this like pretty heavy loss. I mean, that's what people complain about right now. It's like, right, you never really talk to people in person anymore. It's just texting, or very few people call anymore, or like the younger generations who grew up, in this iPhone world, right? I mean, they don't like to phone and talk to people in person, or like people won't put their phones down during dinner and just, communicate. I guess that's too old school, Um, yeah, and there's like this technology will divide the generations. Like, like a lot of parents, like they can't their kids to communicate except through like phone and texting and stuff. Or like the generations between grandparents and kids, that's even like, a bigger jump there, right? So there's not, without issue here. I mean, this is a massive, business and industry, not just business, but industry takeover and win, but at what cost, I'm seeing both sides of it in this chart. Okay, so how does this chart recreate the current sky patterns? Well, Saturn's in Aquarius by aspect. Jupiter is in Taurus by aspect. Mercury, Sun, and Mars are in Sagittarius. And the thing is, like, this is almost like a precursor to what's coming up in the next few months, because you can see Saturn is gandanta. It's in the 2 minutes. It's retrograding at 2 minutes in the first degree of Leo. It's a very unstable place for Saturn. And Saturn is like antiquity. This is like just blowing up like old ways of doing things, frankly. Um, and let's see. Where was I going with that? Okay, Saturn. Oh, and then Rahu was in Aquarius. Well, Rahu is in Pisces currently, but Rahu will be in Aquarius come middle to late May, because Rahu's switching signs. So Saturn's moving out of Aquarius, which it's doing here in this chart, and Rahu's moving in, which it is in this chart. So this is almost like a like a premonition, precursor for what's coming. Yeah, but the thing is, like, we have Venus, even though Saturn is not on Venus like it has been in previous charts and like it currently is. Venus is in a sign of Saturn, and Saturn is very unstable, being in Gandanta. So that also makes Venus unstable. Yeah. Okay. So, anything else? Yeah, this Mercury, Sun, Mars in the 11th house. This is all about like generating buzz through the grapevine. This is about really wanting people to talk, talk, talk. Yeah. So, and that's essentially what they did very successfully. So, in the Lugna here, is Aquarius or Kumbha. This is fixed air sign, so stuck ideas, right? So and we're basically making it more stuck by putting a Rahu in there, because that's going to be an obsessive, ambitious energy. And we're going to have Saturn there. That's going to strengthen, Aquarius more because it's its own sign. And Mars is going to be in there because Mars and Jupiter and parivartana exchange of houses. So there's this massive technological internet thing that's basically impenetrable. I mean, it was like kind of shocking, frankly. Like, I was like, wow, there's like, um, I mean, and it was engineered this way. It's almost like, wow, I wonder if they had like a Vedic astrologer on board for the exact time when they should, launch this thing. Because this is pretty intense. Yeah. So, okay, and then we have Rahu and Purva. That's that like ambition to, frankly, like decimate and transform old ideas, you know, aspected by Swagandanta Saturn. Saturn's in Maga. Maga is symbolized by a throne. So this is like upsetting the previous paradigm, frankly, ways of doing things. And then there's a Gandanta. So two Gandanta planets are, um, aspecting this Lugna here. I mean, this is like just, and one's in Maga. That's not that's a very intense, nakshatra. Mars is in Mula. Purva Bhadrapa. I mean, this is a very intense, like, frankly, it was destructive in terms of, breaking an old paradigm of how people thought and acted and communicated. But um, it's also like, hard to balance. It's hard to find the soft edges here. Let's put it that way. Yeah. Again, because also Venus and Moon are off in the corners. Yeah. Negative houses, and those are emotional. So we're getting more, in our heads and that sort of thing. So put this all together: surprise, unusual, ambitious, obsessive, technology, engineering, disruption, impenetrable, literally blowing people's minds. There's also a Kala Sarpa yoga here. That's an ambition energy. Um, so that's on top of all this. And then Lagnesh is a retrograde. Saturn, Gandanta, it's gone to the seventh house of pleasure. That's a Kamastana. So they had fun doing this. These are engineering, IT people going crazy, having a lot of fun doing this, like, being very aggressive in industry. So they had fun with this. There's just a lot of also dark energy here. I mean, you have three malefics, natural malefics in the Lugna. And then, you could look at the other way, like this Ketu and Saturn in the seventh house of relationships. I mean, that's a Drishkriti yoga. That's a bhava yoga. It's a negative house yoga. And Venus represent, so that could, like, if this is a person's chart, this is a hardcore, ambitious person, like, take no prisoners, like, unbending will, not really caring about emotions, very much like brilliant in their head, but, at a cost here. And so, like, if this person was in a relationship, we looked at the seventh house. I mean, Ketu and Saturn, we're looking at like distance, coldness, divorce. And Venus, the, planet representing relationships, is in the 12th house. I mean, this, like, if this was a person, that's not boding well for their relationships, besides Venus and Moon being in negative houses. Yeah. So, anyway, like I said, I was like, what, kind of blown back by this turn. Yeah, so K2's in Purva Falguni. So this is like enjoying, like, being destructive, frankly. And again, Aquarius is a fixed air sign, but Leo is a fixed fire sign. So this is like, yeah, it's almost like a, burn baby burn type energy. And enjoying the process, I'm sure, because that's the thing, is apparently when they had this conference going on, they literally, at the very moment when he demonstrated the iPhone or brought it out, was they put up a slide that said 9:41. It was 94. So it was all like literally premeditated. So anyway, I was like, ooh, so platform leading to enjoyable luxury device. Yeah, because Purva Falguni can be luxuries and stuff, minor things of life. There's a pravraja yoga here in the 11th house. So that's a focus on, again, clubs, group, society, and income, profits, frankly. There's a budhaditya yoga, Mercury and Sun together in the same sign, qualified because Mercury owns the 5th house. So that's intelligence through science, technology. Yeah. Ubhayachari solar yoga. So, there's support here because we have the two great benefics on either side of the sun, Venus and Jupiter. There's an anafa yoga, lunar support. Although this Saturn, I think, is going to bring the moon down. It'll make the moon cold and steely, the emotions and stuff like that. The Chitragraha has here, this also kind of blew me. Jupiter, Venus, Mercury, Mars. So Jupiter, children, Venus, loved ones, Mercury, communication, Mars, men. It's going to change the way people think and decide, speak. The yogi here is Sun. It's a wealth planet. Aviyogi, Saturn. So I think that, again, there's material profits, but um, I think they're, at this time, they were not thinking about the, you know, quote unquote collateral damage that would come from, you know, the intent to destroy relationships with their competitors and, that sort of thing. And then the duplicate yogi is Mercury. And, so again, you have the two wealth planets in the 11th house of income. So it was very profit driven. Venus and Moon, I've mentioned chronic loss of emotions, emotional issues and relationships, art, even creativity. And then there's also a sadhisati again. So, loss of support, um, loss of a major support system here. So the second house lord is Jupiter. Jupiter's in Anuradha. That sounds pretty good because Anuradha is a victory nakshatra, but victory through alliances. And Jupiter's aspecting its own sign. That seems pretty good. But then you have this Gandanta Mars in Mula, aspecting there as well. So this is like a disruption, a successful disruptive talk. um, it's kind of like, hey, I'm going this new way. Like when the new leader is kind of emerging, and they're like, hey, this old way isn't working. Are you going to rebel with me and go in this new direction? That kind of talk. I can see somebody like standing on a soapbox stand. I guess he was on a soapbox, yeah. So then the third house lord is Mars. It's aspected by Jupiter and Ketu. This is a victory through unusual distant communication. I mean, yeah. Fourth house here, fourth house lord is Venus. It's in Stravana. So literally like oral traditions here are being lost. Aspected by Jupiter, Saturn, Mars. So World Story Engineering Alliance, like get talking through devices rather than talking in person, that sort of thing. Because that led to other things like Zoom and Skype and like that kind of stuff. What else? The fifth house lord is Mercury and Purvashada aspecting its own. Also aspected by Rahu, Mars, Jupiter, Sun, Purvashada. So revealing successful disruptive thought leader. I mean, this was Steve Jobs, really pushing himself forward. Done this. What is this? Done the. I think this chart also indicates that Steve Jobs would eventually himself be lost in all this. Because he would be the ninth house person, ruled by Venus. Venus has gone to the house of losses and expenditures, and the ninth house is aspected by Rahu and Saturn. So a very hardcore, steely person, which I think he was known for. His personality was known for that. And then he, died fairly young from, was it liver cancer, pancreatic cancer, something like that. And he also even got kicked out of his own company by his board of directors and had to come back. I mean, that's how contentious, and hardcore driven this guy was. So yeah. I think the other thing about him, I was just thinking about this might be random or tangential, but I think he was also adopted. And so some of this might be like a reflection of his personal psychology of just being so in the head and like kind of divorced from emotions. Could be, is it a survival skill? I don't know what his whole story was there, but I'm sure that can't be easy. And, the mind and the heart has a trouble digesting that kind of thing, feeling abandoned by parents or whatever. Um, yeah, so let's see. Yeah, okay. So in sixth house Lord is Moon. So again, and that's gone to the eighth house. Six speech to end competition permanently. I mean, well, we're almost 20 years out, and I don't think anything really beats the iPhone in terms of market. What do they call it? Market, a cap, percentage of market that they capitalize on. Yeah, and the sixth house is also aspected by Mars and Jupiter. So this could be like legal issues, like patent legal issues and stuff like that. And the seventh house Lord is Sun. Ketu and Saturn here says separation technology. Eighth house Lord is Mercury. And the moon is there, so troubles with emotions and imagination, intuition, I would say. Um, then the ninth house Lord is Venus. Again, aspected by Saturn and Rahu. So ambitious leader with a global story, story going around the world. I'm sure within a few, very quickly this spread like wildfire. The 10th house Lord is Mars, aspect its own. Jupiter's there in Anurata, disrupting a work alliance. This really just reconfigured the whole industry. Then 11th house, so 11th house Lord is Jupiter, it aspect its own sign through parivartana. Then there's a combust Mercury, Sun, Mars, and Ketu there. This is leading like a social rebellion, frankly, like when you get these energies together. Then the 12th house Lord is Saturn, and Venus is there. Loss of generations, a loss of leader. Like I said, Steve Jobs. Seems like there's some indications that he would be lost through this eventually. Power grab, essentially, this power grab. Because it works for him and it works against him too. Loss of social grace, compassion. Yeah, so this 9:41 a.m. time that I mentioned, I don't have an iPhone, but apparently on most iPhones, when you get it straight out of the box, new, they'll all be set. I think most of them are set for 9:41 a.m. And the reason why is that this is the exact moment that the iPhone was debuted by Steve Jobs. So if you didn't know that, now you do. Yeah, so anyway, pretty intense. And again, we're seeing kind of the same thing. Like Saturn isn't on Venus, but Venus is suppressed by being, off in the corner in a Saturnian sign in the 12th house. And you've got this like boost of Sun, Mars, fire energy here with Mercury, um, and K2. I mean, this Mercury, Sun, Mars, K2 energy. It's in a different sign. It's in Sagittarius here, but currently it's building up in Capricorn. So you can see some similarities here. Yeah. So yeah, there you go. Debut of the iPhone. Then on this slide, most of the stuff I've talked about, so I won't go into a lot of detail because I pretty much have on other slides, but just to be complete. So in this slide, we have Jupiter, Guru, Saturn, Shani, and Rahu, Ketu transits for January. These are the slow-moving planets. They don't tend to move very much. Again, I mentioned this 17-20 January, Saturn-Venus planetary war. Tradition, duty versus love and romance, ending previous thoughts on this kind of stuff. January 24th, K2 goes 5-9 because Mercury moves in Capricorn. So again, more chaos and aggression. January 27th, K2 is an exact aspect on Mercury. So confusion, deception through thoughts and speech. And January 30th, Jupiter has an exact aspect on the Sun. So authority bringing justice. Yeah, so we've talked this again. If you want more, I would go to the other slides for more on this. So, if you like to be your own astrologer, again, a lot of the action is happening in Sagittarius, Capricorn, and Aquarius, so Danu, Makara, and Kumbha this month. So, if you can get your birth chart for free, a copy of it for free somewhere on the internet. And again, if you look at this little simplified chart here, the first house is at the top. If you get a North Indian style chart, and then to get to the other houses, you go second, third, fourth. You count counterclockwise. And then here I've listed just a few basic symbolisms for each house. If you want a lot more detail, I have videos on each house, so you can go through those. But so let's say, again, Aquarius or Kumbha, like you had a Gemini rising chart, so Gemini is going to be in the first house. Aquarius is going to be in your ninth house of authority, government, that sort of thing. And you can see the ninth house here represents father, authority, guru, religion, long travel, higher education, good fortune. This Saturn Venus story is going on in your ninth house. So there's going to be some major shifts and changes in terms of these issues in your life. More so if you're running Saturn or Venus. Okay. That's where the Saturn Venus story is going to play out. So again, you can see I have each axis here. The 1-7 axis, the 2-8 axis, the 3-9 axis, and then on the next slide, we have the 4-10 axis, 5-11 axis, 6-12 axis. So as I always say, if you like being your own astrologer, it's a nice way to start out. Just don't freak yourself out, with these energies. If you're confused or worried about something, it's probably good to speak with a professional astrologer. They can help you sort things out. Because as they say, sometimes a little knowledge can be dangerous. So, but just it's kind of nice to, watch your own chart and see how these different stories and planetary energies, play out, and then see how it actually shows up for, in your tangible reality. So it helps you learn about these more, all these energies, moving through the sky and, demonstrating in our lives. All right. All right. So as always, thanks so much for stopping by, listening to one of my talks. All my teaching videos on the subject are my concepts playlist. For more famous birth charts, check out my birth chart archive list 2024 video, where I have a list of all the famous charts of famous people, places, and moments in time I've analyzed on the channel. In the video, you can find them in. I do offer individual birth chart readings. You can email heartlightastro@yahoo.com. I offer those live on Zoom, on Skype, as pre-recorded video, and then this gift certificate if you want to give somebody a reading. I do have another YouTube channel on natural medicine that covers Ayurveda, traditional Indian medicine, yoga, and other paradigms of medicine like homeopathy and naturopathic medicine. The name of that channel is Nature Source Care. Okay, and so as always, I hope you found this talk helpful, useful, and interesting to you as you learn to navigate the energy cycles of your own life. All right, so until the next one, take good care. Namaste.